Hello and welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at haze, which is essentially a development in Yemen. Essentially, this is from the start. There you go, haze, Yemen. So basically, following the death of Yemeni President Abdullah Saleh, forces loyal to the Saudi-backed Yemeni President Hadi attack north through to Hays and onward to Zabid. So they've sort of got this line that's like that, and then they're pushing north through Hays and towards Zabid up there. So let's maybe just sort of drawing tool that, just to make it clear. So essentially they've got a line there and they push this way, but that's pretty much sort of as much as they get. They don't go any further than that, so they sort of hold that and then they move this way, obviously taking this. It's not even on the sort of strategic maps, but take out Hays, move on to Zabib. So I guess that's a pretty good indication of what they're doing. I'm not sure whether they're taking Zabib. I mean, when I did this they hadn't, but the thing to bear in mind about this is that it's on the sort of more open area, and it's always worth bearing this in mind in relation to the bigger maps. Let me make sure, maybe sort of a go at doing that actually. Yemen. Let's see what we can pick up here. Nope. That's what we're doing. This one. I mean, this is almost a more southern image. I mean, there's, I think that is, well, that's Ikto, so that's Moshka, or that is that place there, Mocha. So if you think of that, it's almost a perfect continuation further south, but it's that sandy strip around western Yemen. I'm pretty sure I've got a full map here. That's a lot more fuller. It's fuller. I think you'll find that it's that area there, but even this doesn't do it justice because it goes a lot further north. But the point I'm sort of trying to make is that now I think that is Turkey, and sorry, Saudi Arabia. So what we've got there is the whole of the strip, and it's a shame that I can't really get in to sort of look at what's in there. But basically, I think that what we're dealing with is just this little window here. So it doesn't really encompass the whole strip. So if this was an initiative where they were going to pretty much do the same thing. So they're pretty much at the same position. So there's their front line there, and we're just moving up to there. But as you can see in the grander scheme of things, this whole strip is held by the Houthi, and after their leader has been killed in Sana, I think, or whatever, they're moving north, and they've pretty much taken that now. So that's what we're sort of looking at there. So when you start to sort of put the pieces together, it's, you know, this is a much large. This is I can never remember which way around it goes. It's a much larger scale, or much smaller scale map. So it's sort of, you know, it's just part of that. But I think one of the things that sort of would make it slightly easier is that it's all relatively open terrain as opposed to going through these hills and things. So anyway, we're just going to play it, or at least the start of it. Now, I haven't really put a lot of thought into how I want to play it, but essentially we've got two main objectives really. Let's put the drawing tool back in. I mean, obviously we've got a front line here, and we've got two primary objectives to go this way and this way, although this way we're only going as far as that. So it might be easy to sort of compartmentalise this. So these two units are not actually that important. And when I was looking at it, I did think, you know, what it might be useful to do is to just go straight through, and there's no empty zone of control there, but go straight through and ignore these two units, similar to the way the Americans did in the Gulf War. You know, when heading towards Baghdad and that, just sort of like ignore the actual towns. And we need the road open really. So now there is another road there, but the thing is, if we were to do that, we could then by default encircle them, basically just ignore them, and using that as a strategic directive, strategic direction. You know, so ignore those two units and just try and go for these. So I'm going to use that as a strategy because I don't want to spend too much time thinking at this moment. So we've got 4 companies in there and 4 in there, and they're all entrenched. So now we've got a task force there and a task force there, but our main task force is here. Look at that. It's interesting, isn't it? You sort of look at these stacks and it just looks like another little stack. Now I'm not sure whether I've given them too much, but I did sort of think, well, you know, they do seem to have gone up here with quite easily. I mean, when you look at it like that, it looks like a walkover. But so the thing to do is to sort of divide the force up as you feel fit. And I mean, looking at that, I mean, really, 3 armoured units, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mechanised units. So I think the thing to do would be to send all the armour north, because we've got a little bit of armour over here, 2 armoured units there already. So we send all the armour this way, and to reflect that and make it easy, it's going to take a long time to filter through all of this, just to get my armoured units, when I can just move it like that. Might make it a bit easier. So I'm going to get my armoured units out. Reload that. Just to sort of keep things perhaps a little more orderly and easier to think about. Now what I'm going to do with my first turn, and this is how I think a lot of first turns should be, and I seldom do, and considering I don't really intend to sort of take the game all the way up here in this little session, I'm going to do this, is to really spend the first turn manoeuvring your troops so that you're in a position to carry out your strike, because it would be very easy to just sort of move these units there. And I'm quite honest, these are just my prep units that I put one of each unit on the map, so that I can just, because I have to click and look for the folder, and then I have to go and look for these ones, so I just plonk these on the map, so that I've got one of each of the things that I'm using, and I just duplicate from there. So the reason they're there isn't particularly amazing. But I think these were a more conscious effort. So I'm turning my armour that way, but I want to take this out, and I'm not sure really how much I'm going to need. I think it's going to be one of these things where it's going to be fairly straightforward. You know, I'm going to have enough whatever to do it, but how much of that will I need? What I'm trying to do is just avoid the pure number crunching, which I don't really do a lot of, but because it's sort of early, that's what I'm sort of thinking. I mean, basically they're 8 and they're going to be doubled because they're entrenched, so that's going to be 16. So 16, 6, 12, 18. So I'm going to have to send a huge block of whatever, but they are only infantry, so it's not insignificant. But what I'm just going to do, because I want to send the main bulk of my force up here, I want to send enough over here to take out this mountain pass. It's not even a place, it's just a pass. It's just sort of a location that they took. So I want to get enough to sort of capture it. And so what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to send all my motorized units, and they use the armor will give me the sort of spearhead, so to speak. So I'm going to send all my motorized units in this direction. So we've moved that. What have we got here? A couple of motorized units. And we're building up for an interesting precedent here, which I'll sort of possibly explain. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build up here for an attack, so I can move there, there, and there, and then build up for an attack on that. However, the interesting precedent that I'm sort of thinking about is, if I do that, it's one of these things in war that I think is really underestimated, or underrepresented, or just mostly completely ignored. The enemy might run away because it would become clear that their position is untenable, and if you look at the map, it is just desert. So what I'm going to do, I'll move these units there. Move these armoured units there. They're going to sort of just move out of the way, but they basically, these units are going to oops. What I'm going to use these units for is to create a line there, just to sort of protect, and that line will essentially move to there, just to stop these units from coming down onto Mocha, which presumably has got to still be defended. So I've positioned these units. Let's just reload it. Easiest to clear the lines. So let's move these mechanized units. Motorized. Let's just move them there for the time being. Now I've moved them that way because I'm not sure how much it will cost to move across that desert space. I quite enjoy just using the roads, whether or not it's quicker this way or the other way. I've tried to make it so that going across country, whatever you are, is quite difficult, and making a preference for the roads, and that knocks on to making roads more strategic. So you have to control the roads so that you can, control the movement. It sort of works. I mean, it's working here in what I'm doing here, but I'm not sure whether or not practically. I haven't really calculated it. I tend not to think that far out. Okay, so we've got some artillery. Let's just reload so we can see what we've got left now. So we've still got some mechanized units in there. I think we've got enough mechanized and armor over here for that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to send one. So we've got some artillery in there. I'm going to send one artillery unit along this way. I'm not sure how far he's going to get. The rest of the artillery is going to go this way. Okay, so it's not so much my first move, but that's sort of more organising thing. So we've got a lot of armour in there. I think this artillery is all moved up now. Miscellaneous bunch of things there. Some troops there. How much movement have they got? See, I could extend this front line. So what I'm now going to do is move all my mechanised units into there. So now what I have is my task force. Click it once or twice. My task force ready for the grand assault on this initial unit. However, I think this artillery has some movement left in it for an attack. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our preliminary bombardment on these units. I'm doing them one at a time. I don't have to. I could select them all to do it all in one hit, but it seems like I get more damage. It's easier. It's just the gameplay. Maybe one day I'll try and figure out how to get a balance that you just do them all in one hit. But that unit has got to have been pummeled. So we've done a lot of damage on them. So we're sort of ready now. So they've been sitting there under this artillery barrage, and we've got some air power as well. This is Saudi air power that's coming in. So we're ready there now with this group. We've moved these infantry to face off these. This artillery's moved about as far as it can. 2.25. So if I can get in there, I can take that hex, so I can have all three of these. I'm unlikely to get that without. I'm unlikely to get this hex without entering that zone of control first. And I don't want to engage these units. That's my strategy at the moment. So I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to end up with those. So I've really got to try and get there. Now the question is, can I do it? Now I can probably do that. I'm not sure whether I can move. Let's just move these. Map thing. I'm not sure whether I can move. They've got 2.25. They could possibly move into there. It just depends on how much movement it costs to get through the desert for a vehicle. But what I'm going to do is make it easier. I'm going to move these ones there. So that means that I can take that hex. With this hex, I can move into both of these. Let me just draw that. So once I control this hex, I can move into there and there, and with this hex I can move into there, giving me that. Okay, and I can use my air power on here. Okay, now this is where it sort of becomes interesting. Let's end that turn. Well, not so much interesting, but my point of, well, we're clearly going to launch an attack there, and I think the Houthis probably will be familiar with that, or aware of that. Now they might want to just hold out here. Now we can do some number crunching. They need 16s. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 30, 39, 16, 32. Could possibly get a 3-to-1, maybe even a 4-to-1. I don't know, but with the surrounds and the fact that we've got armour. So that is relatively compromised. I think over here, based on the amount of depressions, you can't see that, let's look at the depressions here, 8.2, 4.4, 0.5, 0.3. I mean, they've got one unit that is basically dead. And to reflect that in sort of from a roll point perspective. Now, before I do that, basically what I'm saying is, because of the threat down here, it might be worthwhile pulling this line back. So that could involve pushing these units back here and rolling this as far as possible. Now for this unit, he might be better off getting onto the road, where then he can start moving faster. And so the following turn, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, they could have a line across there. And then 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and then on the third turn, get it there. Because there's nothing to defend between there and there. Or they hold their ground and see what happens, and run the risk of getting a DE and losing the whole stack, because they really don't have a lot left. Decisions. Let me just have a sneaky look at the numbers. Well, it's going to be, let's suppose it's 5, 10. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They're going to be pushing. It's going to be 3. They're going to be pushing 7 to 1. You know, 5, 6, 7 to 1. So the best that they can really hope for is that they get an exchange and that they hold that advance up. I just don't know what to do. It's sort of like I wish I could do both. And for the sake of this video, what do I want to do? Because they're not going to get a better defensive position than that, because they are entrenched there. So what I really would like to do is to move that 8.2 unit out, because he could very well get eliminated, and that would be the right thing to do in this instance. And I do actually then have the ability to, I'm going to do that. I do have the ability to at least recover him down to 6.2. Now I'll leave that other guy there who's at 5, so he'll go down to 4. It's not ideal, but I'm going to see whether I can hold out for the exchange. We'll leave these units here, because at the moment we've also got the other side of the coin. We still actually hold a threat on Mocha, and we don't really know what they're doing. I mean, the fact that we've got 2 battle groups targeting these 2 separate hexes doesn't necessarily mean we don't think there's an attack coming on these positions. The only other thing to say, I haven't pointed this out yet, is that on the Houthi side, we know that there are reinforcements coming in from this hex here. We will get some reinforcements later. I'm not sure when they come on, so that is something to bear in mind that I didn't mention. Now, the other part of this is that we've got a battle group up here, which isn't that big, that can respond. And you know, we've got units further north, but not a lot. So the question is, where do we want to meet that threat? I think this game requires a lot more thought. the thing is, I'm loath to move things out of entrenched positions, but these guys are not dug in at all, and it is their purpose as a reinforcement, so they're going to come down here. Two more. Okay. Now, just as a side note, this is what I would maybe say is a pre-balanced game, as I haven't balanced things out. I don't know really how the balance works, because after I've done this, I might say, oh, I'll give the Houthis a few more units, you know, just sort of give them a few more options, because I think the situation's slightly changed, but it's not changed that much. Now I've got these units here, but the infantry I've sort of more allocated to being a static defensive force, because you've got to look at the bigger picture. I mean, they could come out of here and help defend here, but you know, they also really want to defend there, and I think that's one of the things that a lot of strategic games sort of miss or ignore, and that's the fact that you need a lot of units interior, not on the front line, just doing things like, you know, guarding cities. You know, they will have to have a presence here in 10 points for guessing. Oh, I can't guess. Haze, yeah, it's only the name of the game. You know, they'll need units that will be present there. I mean, you know, obviously they'll have maybe a military police or a militia, but also to some extent a larger garrison, because there could be, I mean, I don't think it's so much in this case, but there could be the issues of sort of an insurrection. I mean, that would probably be more, you know, for the Hadis, who's who. You know, they would need to keep units in Mocha to stop just the locals from rising up because of the nature of the situation. But the same could go for both sides. But the point I'm trying to get to here is that, you know, these troops are actually serving a purpose. So you could actually have a game whereas if you leave something empty, there is a cumulative chance or some chance that there will just be the elements in there that will rise up. But on the other hand, you could just make the assumption that by default we've left all those units in there. But it does give you the option then to sort of by acknowledging the existence of those units, such as here, to actually bring them forward. But at the same time, so we're sort of role playing. We need to keep these troops here to create their presence there to maintain, the order, not so much the social order, but control. And so these units are all staying in there because they're actually doing that, and that's why I've sort of left these infantry units in there for. Whereas the more dynamic, the frontline units are sort of to some extent anticipated as being more mobile with motorised. They're basically motorised infantry, and they'll come on from there. So I'm not sure what more to make of that because I just don't want to move anything just for the sake of moving it. We've got a little bit of reinforcements down here, and that should possibly change the balance of things a little bit. Not a huge amount, but at least to give us a bit more, a little more capability for counter strikes. And the only thing to maybe note at this point is, well, let's get rid of those squiggly lines. The only thing that's worth making a point of at the moment is that, well, obviously that's not so much a choke point, but it's narrow there, but it's also sort of narrow here. So these 2 points could be reasonable defensive positions. You could even bottle them onto there. and we've got these units, so we could start falling back. But I'm going to wait. I'm going to hope that I don't get a DE on that. So it's now the Hadi turn, and as I said, we've built up for our assaults, so we might as well just do them because we know what we want to do. Let's just do this one first. Let's fire some artillery first. And let's just go in for our assault. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to leave this unit. Let me just make sure I'm doing the right one. Someone on this hex is going to be left so that I can have at least something. No, they should all get in there. They should all have some movement. It's not as though I'm entering a hill hex where it might be more significant. Okay, let's see what happens. 3-1. It wasn't a walkover, so we forced them out. And that was a gentle victory because it still leaves them relatively. Well, he's got some depressions though. 5.1. Still leaves them relatively intact to form a defensive in this pass. And there's not actually really anything to take. I'm not going to do any more movement there. We've won that battle, so we've pushed these units out. I'm just going to sort of continue with. I should have moved these before I fired them. These infantry units, which are pushing up to face these. So we've got the other attack here. He's moved, hasn't he? Fired. 1, 2, 3. Shouldn't. 1, 2, 3. Shouldn't have been able to reach there, but he did. Yeah, this infantry won't be able to get there. Okay. One thing I didn't think about really is the damage that the artillery will do. Okay, I'm not going to use my air power because I think I can do it without the air power. Let's see. Press the button. Ah, no, that's with a 10. I should have anticipated that. You see, there you go. I mean, I should have fallen back with those units. They would probably still have been able to come up, but now I've got nothing. I could have been 1, 2. Could have been there with these units. Oh, that's where this unit went. So I saved this crappy unit and lost everything else. So there you go. But I was hoping for an exchange. I was hoping for the odds to be a little easier. I didn't anticipate, and I should have, the effect of the initial artillery, which knocked it down even further, which probably put the odds up. Let me just see what that was. I mean, I was 7.6. I calculated myself as being at 10, and I think it's the artillery that knocked it down. But even at 10 it would have still been a 7-1, so to be quite honest that was a mistake to try and hold out there. It served no purpose other than slowing them down a little bit, but you know, 3.25. I'm not even going to bother. Did he not go into the attack? How much movement have they got left? Not enough really to warrant anything else. I mean, it's stupid putting all these units in here like this. It's just simply because we're going to get 7 to 1s and hopefully a DE, but it's never DE yet. So we're now able to just sort of follow straight up here. Now these units have come down too far now. So the situation is now that, which is interesting, really, is that the front line is, we've lost the option of taking this front line. That's no longer an option, really. We're going to have to fall back with these at the very best to hold that second front line here. And now these units are, as I said, essentially isolated. This is going to be a lot easier to defend, but there is, generally the hills, it's always going to be a little easier to defend. This is a slightly smaller force, but hopefully what should be able to do is just to move these units straight through. There's not a lot to sort of stop any advance. I think on a game balance I'm going to give the these light green people, the Houthis, a few more units. Although that said, we still haven't seen the effect of them coming on here. We haven't even got past turn 1. I think they come on turn 4 or something. When do they come on? Turn 4. So you get these units coming on turn 4. I don't want to sort of make it so that it's an unbalanced war game, but I think I want to give them a little more flexibility so that it's, they're going to lose that. Just sort of something to sort of give you a few more tools to play out, a few more of the variant options of falling back quicker, creating a more defensive line. There isn't really anything in here. I'd like to put something else that's, say, more of a village type thing or something like that, because they have their own inherent defense values. I'm not going to play it any further because I don't want to spend too much time. It's surprising how small a game can how small a game can be such a big game. What I mean by that is sort of relatively small units. That's why I prefer some of the small ones. I mean, although they're all small games, technically, some of these are still monster games in the sense that they could take forever to play, just moving these things around. But I think it's interesting. I mean, I do like just the ability to sort of just play a couple of turns and then to see how that strategy works. I mean, for example, we could play it again now and actually fall back with these units a lot quicker, but see how the addition of these new units changes things. I think I'll just add a few more units to all of these front lines, just so that the initial assault will be a little tougher, and then a couple more maybe here to offer a sort of more defensive fallback for gaming purposes, and extending that sort of the range simulation possibility, so to speak. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spend all day playing this game, all morning, all afternoon, whatever it is. I hope you enjoyed that. If you like this, you want to play it, you can just sign up at warblog.co.uk, and you can move the counters around and have lots of fun doing so, gauging your brain, so to speak. Okay, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio.